I just got back from a 3-day mastermind with New York Times bestselling authors, YouTube creators with millions of subscribers, and founders running multi-million-dollar companies. I walked away with pages of notes on pricing psychology, LinkedIn strategy, and even storytelling. But the thing that hit me the hardest is realizing that even after everything that I've built, I still don't fully believe in myself or what's possible for me. Today, I'm sharing every tactic and takeaway from the mastermind that I learned from everyone else, plus the thing that nobody talks about when you're finally in the room you always wanted to be in. Welcome to On Your Terms, or welcome back if you listen regularly. Thank you so much for being here. On Your Terms, I try to share episodes where I teach you how to be as present in your life, as profitable in your business. Sometimes we straight up focus on business, which is more or less what we're talking about today. And other times I really talk about how I'm also present in my life, regardless of the fact that I run a multi-7-figure business, and really how both of those have to work together to help me be both present and profitable. And I thought I would kick things off today by talking about what this mastermind even was and why I was there. So basically, this all started years and years and years ago when I started going just as an attendee to the annual conference called Craft and Commerce. It's in Boise, Idaho, every single June. And it's put on by Kit, formerly ConvertKit, there in Boise every single year. I started going in either 2018 or 2019. It obviously got a little interrupted by COVID, and then my parents died, and then I went back again. And last year, you might remember, I gave a keynote at Craft and Commerce, which was just like literally the highlight of my online business career, and then also got to teach a workshop at that conference as well. So I've been going to Craft and Commerce for so many years, and in doing so, I've really built up a nice little group of friends at that conference because Craft and Commerce is one of those conferences where the same people kind of tend to go every single year. There's like always a little bit of a fresh batch of people, but you will also see like the same foundational people there every single year. I can't tell you how many people I know who say to me that Craft and Commerce is a must on their calendar every year, where they just like plop that in and they're like, I am definitely going to that, and everything else can be scheduled around it. That is 100% how I feel too. I'm going again this year. I just love it so much. So going there year in and year out really exposed me to so many incredible people. There's something really special about Craft and Commerce, like the kind of people that it attracts are my people. I imagine that you would like them a lot too. They're just really, really down to earth. I would say there's like literally zero gatekeeping. Everybody is willing to talk with you. And I think what's so cool about Craft and Commerce more than any other conference I've been to is that you can see somebody who's like, quote unquote famous in our little neck of the woods, who will be sitting right next to you at a workshop, or sitting right next to you in the keynote, main stage area, watching somebody on stage give a talk, and they'll turn and talk to you. They'll like chat with you about resources and what they're doing and what's working for them. It's just a really welcoming and down to earth event. So because of all that, that led to me finding out last year when I was at Craft and Commerce about this new year-long mastermind that was evolving called Aspen. So it's the year-long mastermind that I'm actually in this year in 2026. There's only about maybe 16 or 18 of us total in it. And it's an incredible mastermind that's really been born, I feel like, out of people going to Craft and Commerce. Aspen itself was actually also born out of this twice yearly event called Mashup. So a lot of people in the online business industry go to this Mashup event. It's usually held in April and October in Atlanta. It's always in Atlanta. And this event has been getting bigger and bigger, and it's very similar to Craft and Commerce in that like kind of the same people are going all of the time, and it's also a lot of the same people from Craft and Commerce. So it's just like a lot of overlap. And as Mashup was growing and people were just loving it so much, some of the people in Mashup said to Sean Blanc, one of the people who founded Mashup along with Mo Bunnell, was that they wanted more, right? Like they wanted to meet more outside of this twice yearly meetup in Atlanta for Mashup. And that's how Aspen was born. Aspen became a mastermind out of Mashup. I had never been to Mashup before. And so I'd heard about it. It's like kind of well known in the industry, but I had actually never been. And I'm pretty open about talking about the fact that like before my book came out, I don't feel like I was very well connected in this industry. Like, I didn't know a lot of people. I kind of laid low. I sort of had to because of what I had going on, taking care of my dad and then my parents dying and all of that. And yeah, I just didn't really have those kinds of connections. But when I heard that Aspen was forming and that so many people who were from craft and commerce were joining it, I knew I needed in. And since I joined Aspen, I figured, well, I should probably go and see the original event, that mashup event that I had never been to before. And now that I'm in Aspen, it's sort of what's just happening. Like, people in Aspen are going to mashup and vice versa. So I just went to mashup for the very first time. It's essentially a 3-day mastermind, kind of like 2 half days, 1 full day. Some people extended their trip. I did not because I had my pottery class on Sunday. So I refused to miss it and didn't go early. That was actually hard because I missed out on seeing my friends and I was having a ton of FOMO. But as I practice what I preach here on the podcast, and like, I'm sticking to really what's lighting me up and like nurturing myself and my creativity offline. So I stuck around in New York and went to my pottery class and didn't get there until Monday. So essentially we had Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday all with our mastermind, and there were about 40 of us there. I was going to say all over the country, but actually all over the world. We had Oliver Ost came from Berlin, Germany. We had Joe Franco came from Antwerp, and we also had my friend Mallory came from Toronto. So we had people from all over the place, including obviously all over the US. Okay, I have to tell you a little bit about like the types of people who were at this mastermind in order for you to really understand what I got out of it. So there were several New York Times bestselling authors in the room, which I'm starting to get used to these days because the Aspen Mastermind I'm in has several, including several more to come their books are just about to come out and they're like very clearly going to hit the list. So there were several New York Times authors. There were many YouTubers of all varieties. There were people killing it on LinkedIn. There were book agents, 2 book agents at least that I know of, and a few book editors and ghostwriters. There were coaches of all varieties in the industry. There were a lot of people who do more like, I would say, high-level consulting, even for Fortune 100 companies. There were SaaS company founders, software founders. The list just went on and on. At this point, I'm not really going to like name names unless I know that I have that person's permission in terms of when I share with you in a moment all the things that I took away from this training. But I also have been tagging people on Instagram and letting you know like who was at it. It's not a secret as to like who was at it. And I just recommend you go and follow them and learn from them online. So here's how the mastermind itself was structured. So day 1 on Monday, I arrived in from New York. There was some time for everybody to mingle, kind of like a cocktail happy hour situation. Then we did this really cool intro situation where we actually stood in the room. Everybody had to stand. My back was killing me by the end of it, but we had to stand. And it was this like gigantic circle of the 40 people, and everybody went around and gave a very, very brief intro about who they were and like what they did. But what I think is really cool about Mashup and Aspen included is that there's really no secret that people are there to get something, but they're also there to give something. And so instead of just like acting like we're all like, oh yeah, I would love to like get coffee sometime, but you're just asking that person to be on their podcast, people are pretty upfront about it and these things. But you also have to be forthcoming with like, I can also help you with this, right? Or I know this person I can introduce you to. So when we went around in the intros, you had to say something you were there for that you needed help with or that you wanted, and something you were able to help other people with, right? So when it got to me, I was saying like, I want to get more podcast guest spots because I want to sell more of my book. So also if anybody has ideas about that, like I'm all ears. And a couple of people have told me I'm good at marketing, so I can help you with things like email marketing or scaling digital products. And so I had people coming up to me, asking me tons of questions about my email list or about the fact that I only sell 2 digital products that, do pretty good. And then I also had people coming up to me being like, hey, you said you wanted a podcast thing. Like, I know somebody with a podcast that you should get on. So it's really nice because it's, I don't know. I just like how it's a little bit more upfront. After we did our intros, we had dinner catered at this event house. It's called the Pace House in Atlanta. It was beautiful. We kept mingling with each other. And then we all walked back to our hotel and hung out outside around the fire pit for so long, which was so nice. And on day 2, we were like up and at it. It was a really full day. We were up and at it really early. Everything started at 8:30 the next morning with breakfast and then sessions all day long. And they were back to back to back sessions about a lot of the things I'm going to tell you about in a minute. In the afternoon, we broke into groups of like 3 or 4 and had hot seats where I think everybody in our group got 20 minutes to have the floor, share something, whether it was like you just wanted to talk about something, you had a question, you wanted to pick the brains of the people who were in your group, whatever it was, you got your 20 minutes. I got so lucky because I had like a really famous agent and book editor in my hot seat, and then my friend who was about to come out with the New York Times bestselling book. And then my other new friend who's like a YouTube star and has been on Netflix. And so I just had like a really cool group of people who I got to pick the brain of. It was also so cool to be like, I almost imagine what it would be like if you had like a really big company and you had a board of advisors or something, and you got to like pick advisors that are from all these different walks of life. Getting everybody's perspective on my problem or my question was just so invaluable. After our hot seats, we had dinner again. We had another cocktail hour and hung by the fire, I think even later that night, because we had all just spent all this time together all day and we just like needed time to decompress and get to know each other. But that was like some of my favorite time. On day 3, it was really a much shorter day, so I got up really early to meet a whole bunch of people for coffee because I essentially cannot sleep when I go to these events anymore, and I'm up, so like we might as well go do something. And there was a really cool coffee shop next door called Reed. If anybody's from Atlanta, I thought it was adorable. It was a combo bookstore coffee shop. It was beautiful, and they opened really early. So we all met there for coffee, walked to breakfast, and then I got to go over to a podcast studio in downtown Atlanta and go back on my friend and the founder of Kit, Nathan Barry's podcast. So again, I should say, so I was on Nathan's podcast last year, right before my book came out. And Nathan was kind enough when he found out he was also at this mastermind, mashup mastermind with me this week. And when he found out I was there, his team asked if I was cool to record again. And like, obviously, yeah, sure. So I went to go do that and then grabbed a cab to the airport and went home to New York. It took me over 2 hours to drive home from the airport, so I got home really late on Wednesday night and have basically been a walking zombie ever since. I'm recording this like 2 days later, and I'm still just like staring off into space. But while it was fresh, I really, really wanted to sit down and share with you what I learned from all of these incredible people at this mastermind. And then I want to share what some of my personal takeaways were, not just from what I learned from them, but also what it's like to be in a room full of people like that. And you might be listening to this because, like, I imagine if I had been listening to this before and you're like, well, I'm never going to get into a room like that and, like, must be nice. You know, these days I'm getting a lot more of the, like, must be nice type of things. So first of all, I want to talk about it because I think that this didn't happen by accident in terms of how you start getting into rooms like this. I also think there might be a lot of story. There were people there of like varying degrees of success, revenue, lengths of time they've been in business, right? Like all over the place. And it was so funny because no matter who you talk to, whether it was the New York Times bestselling author or the person who's just made a giant life pivot and like feels like they had nothing to offer the group, everyone felt like they didn't belong in the room. Everyone. So it was really funny that like we also come up with this story. You know, I kind of wrote a whole book about the arrival fallacy of like, when I start my business, I'll be happy. We kind of come up with the story of like, oh, well, I don't belong in that room yet. But like when I do, I'm going to like feel like I belong there. No, you won't. And so it won't feel like that now. It won't feel like that then. And so it's really about just starting to like insert yourself slowly but surely into these rooms, like one step at a time. So let's talk about what I learned from them while I still remember it. So far this year, the law has been cracking down on online business. And in my humble opinion, if you're running an online business or plan to start one in the next like 6 to 12 months, it's really important to get informed about which legal foundations you need to have in place ASAP. I've got a free legal class that helps you learn how to start an online business the right way. It's called 5 Steps to Legally Protect and Grow Your Online Business. And in it, I'm going to cover the 5 simple steps that you need to take to create a business from scratch or make the one that you've already started legit. Sign up for my free legal class right now by clicking the link down in the show notes or head to my website, samvanderwielen.com. Let's declare this month as the month you'll inform yourself about what you need to have in place. After all, nobody is going to do this for you. You have to do it, I'm sorry to say. And I want to help over 10,000 people this year start an online business before 2026 ends. If you can't find a time that works for you, sign up anyway because I will send you the replay. I'll even send you a private podcast link so you can listen to the replay on the go. So press pause, my friend, click the link in the show notes to register for my free legal class right now. All right, have you done it yet? Because I will literally just sit here and wait for you. I'll have my podcast team insert like Jeopardy music while you go sign up. It's that important. Or maybe we'll just have to use crickets because Jeopardy music might be copyright infringement. Or maybe I'll just sit here with some awkward silence. All right, you did it. Good job. I'll see you at class. I can't wait. Now, let's get back to the episode. So one of the co-founders of the Mashup Mastermind is Mo Bunnell. Mo is an incredible entrepreneur who we have so much to learn from. He shared so many different things about selling and pricing and so many different things related to funnels with all of us. It was so helpful. But I think that everyone collectively walked away with this very simple pricing tip from him that kind of blew their mind. So for one, Mo gave us all the tip that when you're pricing something, you should never price anything with a round number, right? Of like ending, he said there should never be more than 10 at the end of a number. And second of all, he believes in picking really weird numbers. Okay. So like, let's say instead of me making my product $4.99 or $4.97, we make it like $4.64 or something like this, right? Or $4.60, like something kind of random. There are a couple of different reasons he said this is a good idea. One is that he said that when people see weird numbers, they tend to believe them a little bit more, right? It's like, I trust that that's like the value of this product versus like, oh, you priced it this way because $19.99 sounds better than saying $20, you know? But if I see something $17, it just sounds like it's worth $17. Do you know what I mean? But there was actually an even bigger, I would say, tactical reason why Mo prices things this way. He also does it because it allows you to do price raises. Because I can tell you as somebody who has always priced my stuff as like $19.99 or $3.47 or always like right on those cusps, I don't raise my prices partially because I'm like, I feel like I'm at the ceiling, right? So if I'm at $19.99, now what am I going to do? $2,050? Like it's kind of weird. And it feels like it's not worth it to go above that $2,000 mark. So what Mo says is that he always does, and he always recommends to his clients, is that you institute an 8% price raise every single January 1st. And when you start pricing your stuff as like weird numbers, like $470, now you have an automatic price raise on January 1 of 8%. It doesn't sound as weird as if you had priced it at $499 and then done an 8% price raise the next year. I thought that that was so smart, and I wish that this is something that I would have instituted a long time ago and just gotten people in my audience used to the fact that my prices are just naturally raising over time. And he says that you should just make it known company-wide, like, hey, my prices increase every year, 8% on January 1st or more. Maybe you have to for whatever you do, right? But like for a digital product, that seems perfectly reasonable. I know that for me, my costs have gone way up and my prices have not. Right. So if anything, we've played more with pricing discounts and all that. So it got me thinking about even when I do pricing discounts in the future, maybe making them a weirder number so that the following year I can do an 8% increase to cover my own increasing costs, right? The cost of all of our wages has gone up. Taxes are all over the place. Like the cost of all of our software has gone up. My contractors are charging me more. Everyone's charging me more, but I'm not charging my customers more. So I thought that this was a really, really impactful tip. The other thing I wanted to mention from Mo's training that I knew would be helpful to all of you was that Mo recommends to his clients that you never say fees when you're referring to your costs or the price of your product. And you also never start a sentence with like, it costs, like my training costs, my coaching costs, my product costs, right? He said you should always call it an investment because it shows that essentially when you use the word investment, somebody's getting something back for it, right? So when we invest in the stock market, we're supposed to get a return, right? So the idea here is instead of saying like, my fees are $8,000, it's like the investment for this program is $8,000. And that makes it sound more active also, like that the person is making an investment in you, in themselves, in bettering, whatever, their career, their health, their money, whatever it is. I know that for one, I always do this with the bundle. I never say like it costs. I try not to in the webinar. It's interesting. I'm going to be really conscientious of this moving forward, of saying like the investment in the ultimate bundle is X. But I think that this is a really good one, along with my own personal tip that like you never call a webinar a webinar. You should also always call it a training. And like I never call the ultimate bundle a course. I mean, because for one, it actually is not a course. It's legitimately not. It's a package of templates and trainings. But I also know psychologically what the word course triggers in other people, which is like, oh no, another thing to do. And that's not what I want to do to people. So all that to say, the words that we choose, the words that we use to describe our products, programs, services matter a lot. One of the other trainings we had was by Justin Wright. Justin is one of the go-to experts on how to grow your LinkedIn profile to support your business. And I know that all kinds of people in the online business industry hire Justin to come in and like do all kinds of magic with their LinkedIn profiles and then get tons of traffic to their business. It's not personally a place that I focus on as my main, like I don't put what I would call like independent effort into LinkedIn. We have a presence there, and Michelle and our team repurposes the content that we're creating elsewhere for LinkedIn because it's like, why not? But it's not personally a place that I pour a lot of energy into. I do know, however, that a lot of you do. And I also know it's a great strategy and it's a great place to hang out. Certainly better than like Instagram and TikTok. So I don't blame you if you like to hang out there. So I wanted to give you a couple of gems from Justin because he was just dropping them left and right. The first was that your line in your bio, so like essentially when you go to your LinkedIn profile, the first sentence you see under somebody's name should be more about the person who's reading it than about you or a description of your resume. So it was so funny because first I had to find my LinkedIn password as we were sitting there, and I was like fumbling around on my phone trying to find out how to even log into LinkedIn, like what was my username. I didn't know. So I go in there. Turns out, by the way, I had hundreds of pending requests. I had no idea. So I have no interest in LinkedIn, but I went and I looked to see what my description was. And my description was like lawyer turned entrepreneur, author, podcast host. Like it was exactly what he told you not to do, right? I didn't know. So he was saying like that reads more like your resume, which the rest of your LinkedIn bio kind of does for itself. Whereas really what's important is like that's the part that someone who's searching is going to see, or somebody who lands on your profile is going to see, and they need to know, is this a place for them? Do you help them? So I changed mine from the whole like lawyer turned entrepreneur thing to more of the like I help online entrepreneurs legally protect their online businesses. And then I put the little like divider line and put author, podcast host. He said that was fine, but as long as you had the other part first. The next thing Justin recommended was changing your header image or even utilizing that space to begin with to have some sort of designed image with a call to action of whatever you want the people who find you on LinkedIn to do. Do you want them to join your newsletter, listen to your podcast, like download something, whatever it is, put that there. He said that all of your content on LinkedIn, in order for it to succeed, must do at least one of these three things. It has to educate, validate, or motivate, which makes a lot of sense because that's really similar to what other kinds of content we post on other platforms. He also let us know about this featured section on the LinkedIn profile, which I didn't previously even know about, which is essentially where you get to design a handful of boxes that go on your LinkedIn profile to advertise to your other calls to action, your products, maybe your book, your podcast, whatever you want people to go check out from you. And he also recommended that the very first thing that's in that featured section is the most important. So the thing that shows up on the leftmost box, because on mobile, that's the only thing that's going to show up. So never thought about that. That's really important. So if you knew that, for example, your newsletter was the most important thing that you want to drive traffic to, I would probably make it be that first square. The next thing I learned from so many people in the group were just so many book tips. I honestly don't know how much you will really want to know about this or how helpful it will be to everyone. I know not everybody wants to write a book or feels called to or anything like that, or just you might have it still as like a dream, but you're not currently in the process. But I thought I would share with you just something that I thought was so interesting and that just continues to blow my mind. I think you would be really surprised by how much authors have to do for their own books. that how much we have to buy them ourselves in order to get them to conferences or in the certain rooms or to donate them to certain groups or whatever. How many people in the room who are really, really, really successful authors, like way more than probably I could ever imagine being, who hire editors on their own, right? So like when you get a Big Five book deal, you get an editor from the Big Five and they're an incredible editor. They go out and they hire another editor, somebody who's even more hands-on with them, because the editors at the Big Five are stretched thin and they have a lot of different projects going on. And sometimes they take months to get back to you about your transcript. A lot of them are using editors that they're working with day to day to day, which I thought was just so wild. A lot of them also use ghostwriters, which I also thought was really wild. As somebody who loves writing and like that was always my dream of writing a book, I was so surprised to learn that people want to write a book that they don't actually write. So it was just really interesting. I'm like, oh, right. So it like supports your business, right? Then there's all different kinds of ways to go at this. And that kind of blew my mind. Obviously, there's always dispelling the myth that like writing books makes you rich or something like that. It is only confirming to me hanging out with like bigger and bigger authors that the money is not coming from the books. And so I feel like it's my duty to tell people that like when you see us going out there and promoting books, getting book deals, that like I am spending a lot of my own money to do that, right? That my business being such like a well-oiled machine is what allows me to go out and write the book, promote the book, and then pay for the book eventually to do things that a lot of my contemporaries in the author world are doing, like big, big, big speaking gigs, like speaking at Google, like we're talking like multi-5-figure, 6-figure speaking fees, right? That is where they're getting money. That's also where their book essentially leads them. So they like write the book and then they get the advance, but they're really pointing people to like, hey, hire me to come speak. And then that's really what they're making money off of. It's also then circuitously like helping to build back their book because they'll tend to buy copies of the book. So it's just very interesting. The book world has blown my mind, and I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, I just almost feel like funny that I wrote one, because I'm just like, I had a very different experience. I had no idea this was all going on. Like nobody told me. I was just like, I want to write a book and like I'll promote it myself, I guess. So very interesting. I also learned a ton of strategies and like promo hacks and things that people are doing for reviews and how they're selling copies and companies they're using to buy copies of their books, to using individuals' addresses to bump themselves up on the New York Times. Stuff that blew my mind. I also don't think I'm at liberty to share like who they're coming from and the specifics of them, but the things that are going on, you guys, unbelievable. Okay, my new favorite person that came out of this mastermind, and the person who, when I saw the list of all the people who were going, there were only a few people on there who I didn't know at all, had never met at all. And one of them who I was most excited about was Joe Franco. So Joe is so cool. I already knew who Joe was. You probably also know who Joe is if you lived through COVID and had a Netflix account, because Joe was the host of the vacation properties show on Netflix, The World's Most Amazing Vacation Rentals. And I feel like everybody watched it during COVID because we were all dreaming of being able to travel again. She also has an incredible Instagram account where she like talks about travel, but also talks a lot about language and linguistics. She is super, super smart. She's really cool. And she's working on a really cool self-produced project right now, where she's producing her own travel show that focuses on words or phrases that are essentially untranslatable into English. So things in other countries that they have, like hygge is probably a well-known one. It's not one she's currently covering, but like if you know about the Danish concept of hygge, it's this idea of like coziness and being calm at home and enjoying your surroundings that doesn't translate into any like one perfect word. I think it's the coolest idea. I just think it's so cool what she's doing. She's already dropped episode 1, so I'll make sure I link to that down below. But from Joe, I am just always blown away by meeting people who are truly creative. My friend Michelle is like this. I tell her this all the time, and who are just true creators at heart, who feel more passionate about actually like learning their craft, expressing their creativity than they do about like how it's perceived and how it's packaged and who cares about it. Like Joe, for example, has been told that one of her ideas was actually too smart to be taken on by any major network, right? That the people weren't smart enough to watch this thing. And, somebody like me would probably be, first of all, crushed by that. And second of all, be like, okay, I'll like repackage it so that it's like maximally like viral, and so I can figure out how to spread this thing. And Joe's like, no, this is the best way to tell the story. I also think that's like rude to people who like you're totally underestimating people's intelligence and how many people are interested in this topic. And so, you know what? I'm going to go do it myself. And like she's so into to actually, she's just so committed to actually telling the story that she wasn't going to take no for an answer. I also think that you can learn a lot from someone like her where she understands that storytelling is at the heart of of any visual display of like a travel show, for example. Like she has to be as good as she can at her craft of editing and narration and like storyboarding ahead of time, right? And all of the things that go into producing content like that. Like I think a lot of people just think people just like pop up and they create that content. And it was a big reason why Joe actually, who had a super successful YouTube channel with millions of subscribers, stopped doing vlogs because she was saying like, I'm not trying to just do vlogs the way everybody else does vlogs where you just show up and you're like, oh, look, here's like a cute coffee shop. She wants a real true story about a place, about its language, about its history and its people. And so, yeah, she's just taken the time. She went and actually got a master's degree in film editing. Like she's just a very cool person. So I thought it was just so cool to learn from somebody who's really passionate about what she's doing and finding the right place for her art and her medium instead of adapting her message to a platform for an algorithm. This didn't come from any one person in particular, but I also, last but not least, just in observing this group of people who, like I said, they've pretty much all been to Mashup before. There were a handful of us who were new, but observing this group of people who had dedicated themselves to in-person community over time, right? And like these people have gotten together at least twice a year, and then many of them see each other in other other events and stuff like that, including Craft and Commerce, for years and years and years. There are actually a lot of people who were there who have never missed a mashup in all the years that it's been on. And these people have formed very tight bonds. They are some of, I would say, their closest friends in their life, let alone in online business. Many of them traveled together. They've started businesses together. They work together. They secretly announced, we can't talk about it yet, but a major company in our space got sold. And one of the other people from Mashup started working with one of the other people in Mashup. Like it's just so, there's so many things. Book deals have come out of it. So many things have come out of that community. And I just thought it goes to show that I think sometimes it's easy to think like, oh, I have to go to like every conference this year or max out like all these visits, like as if it's a checklist. But in reality, I think observing the people in Mashup, I'm like, you'd be better off going to like one thing that has a small, very targeted group of people and consistently going there, then consistently networking and continuing to build relationships with those same people. And you'd be shocked how much your network can actually grow just from like that. Like there were 40 people at Mashup, for example. The number of connections and people that everybody knows and people that people used to know and work with and do a project with or whatever, it's exponential. And so it really helps to remind me that you don't have to be everywhere all at once. So I'd also like to share some of my own takeaways from being at Mashup this past week. Not necessarily these little like tips and strategies I learned, but just some reflections I have from spending time in a room like that. The first was during the LinkedIn training. I always have this like aha moment where I'm just like, oh, there's a platform for everybody. Like you can go to a conference like this or go to Craft and Commerce and you will meet somebody who has millions of subscribers on YouTube, but isn't on Instagram. You will meet somebody who has 100,000 Instagram subscribers, but has no email list and no podcast. Like insert combination here, you can find that person. I am always shocked when like I go to Craft and Commerce or when I was at Mashup, like to find out like, wow, that guy's killing it on LinkedIn, but he has like nothing anywhere else, like, cause that's his thing, right? And I just always think like, that's awesome. That is so reassuring to me that I don't have to be everywhere at once, that it's actually just better to pick the place that you like to hang out and not buy into the story that's like, in order to be successful, I have to be on Pinterest or I have to be on TikTok or I have to be on Instagram or insert thing here, right? Like we can all come up with stories about that. I could tell you a million stories about how people who do what I do are way bigger on YouTube. And so like, therefore they must be killing it. So I should go to YouTube. It's like, No, I know where I've built my audience. I keep nurturing it there. And by continuing to spread myself so thin on all these other platforms, I'll actually lose, I think, the connection I do have in the on the platform I've built it on. Okay, the next one has to do with AI. AI. Me and my friend Steve just kept calling ourselves the AI Luddites, because that's how we feel. Here's the deal about AI. There are so many cool ways that people are using it. Yes, this is true. This was only confirmed by everything that I saw there. And it was really cool to watch. There were at least one presentation about AI directly, and then others that mentioned them a lot. And it was just like, that is awesome. Like, yes, there are great ways to use this, right? I think what's really interesting, in case you're also like this, is that there was like a little secret group of us who were like making googly eyes at each other that don't really care to use it that much. And it was really interesting because sometimes you can feel very alone in it, of just kind of like, I'm so glad you guys are building like bots for your bots for your bots. And like now, like co-work is all like a thing. And we were like secretly texting each other, like, what is co-work? And like somebody wrote me back and was like, I'm still Googling what is AI. And we were just joking around about it. I think it was just kind of reassuring that there were some other people that were just like, meh, and like a range of meh. Like, I'm not anti, I just don't care so much to learn it. I guess I also have the controversial view that I'm like, is this, it's not that it's a fad. I'm not saying it's a fad like as if it's gonna die out and never be used again. I feel more like we're at a bursting bubble point, right? Where like it's like, you hear it's like they advertise like a vacuum cleaner has AI, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like one day where hope that we'll just stop hearing about that kind of stuff. And it gets kind of bloated. I don't know. It feels a little bit bloated. And I hope we kind of come back down to earth about it. But I also had this like aha realization moment where, because people were like, oh, don't talk to Sam about AI. Like she's anti-AI. I'm like, no, I'm not. And also, by the way, we use it in certain ways in our business. But I realized being at Mashup that it's really the use of AI for creativity versus productivity that is like kind of where I fall on it. So where I'm like super anti AI is in the use of it for creativity. So what I'm talking about is what I believe they call generative AI, right? So generating original writing, generating original social media posts, like without you doing anything for it, right? Like not being based on your writing or your previous thoughts or whatever. I obviously understand that AI is incredibly helpful for all things productivity, automation. Like I learned there that people are using it for like kind of like a assistant. Like they tell it like a to-do list and it scans their calendar and it knows what they worked on yesterday, and like so many different things you can do with co-work that I had no idea. It was all like my eyes were totally glazed over by the end. I had no idea. And I think that's great. If that's what makes people happy like that and that's helpful to them, that is great. I mean, personally, it was kind of funny for me listening to some of the things they were listing off that the, like, especially co-work does for them. And I was like, well, somebody on my team does that for me. And I would rather work with somebody on my team. Like, I don't want somebody to be doing that. And I enjoy, like, I only have one full-time employee, one part-time, and then another part-time contractor. We have a great little team. I love them and I don't want them to go anywhere, and they're good at what they do and they bring a lot to me that I also know AI doesn't. Like, yes, I know I could build out something that probably scans my calendar and tells me something, and like that's great. But my team also knows how to manage my energy, which a bot does not. And so they're the ones that are like, hey, by the way, like we know that this happens to you every time you come back from a conference. Like, how about we buffer this more next time or do that thing? That stupid bot is not telling me that. So I don't know. It's like I hope everybody just gets to a place where like the hysteria around it calms down. Use it if you want to use it. Don't if you don't. But I did realize that like where everyone always accuses me of being anti-AI, it's really just being a anti-AI for your creativity. I saw somebody say yesterday that if you're a writer asking AI for ideas, that you need to reevaluate how you're spending your time. And I can tell you as somebody who likes to write, like I could sit here all day long and just like write, like as long as my little fingers would keep going. I am endlessly filled with ideas of what I could write about, things I want to say. I feel like there's not enough time in the world. It's also because I get offline and I live my life. And so I'm not asking this bot to generate ideas of what I should write about. And I was also thinking about that from a business perspective, that if it could be its potential, I'm not saying it's true, always true, but it could be potentially a sign that you're not tapped in enough to your ideal customer if you're having to ask AI to give you ideas of what to talk about to them. So that is concerning to me that I was like, yeah, if you're asking it to tell you like straight up, not like you're saying to it, like, I want to create a post about X, Y, and Z, like help me structure it or outline it, that's different. But if you're asking it for like completely generative I would encourage you to get in the trenches and talk more to people who are around you. Spend more time with your clients and just in general in your creativity, like getting out, getting offline, doing things for fun, make something with your hands, destroy something with your hands, whatever. You need to do something that generates naturally a creative burst. I also realized in being in this room that I just have such low expectations for myself. It's really interesting for me to be in a room like this and hear from people who have gotten just insane deals. I mean, like well deserved, right? Well deserved. But like the way that I look at it, I'm just like, wait, what? Like I wouldn't have even thought to fight for that for myself, or things that I know that they're getting included for them, with their publisher, this, that, the other thing. And I'm like, I never even asked. I just paid for it myself. Like I didn't even know. Just having such like low expectations, because for me, it comes from this feeling of like, I'm just lucky to be there and therefore I have to like make up for it somehow. And I think that that's been really, really helpful for me to be around this kind of group of people who've pushed me to just be like, no, of course you should ask them for that, or you should expect that and they should do that for you. And I'm like, really? Like, I just would never expect anybody to do that for me. So it just, I guess, illuminates that kind of like, mindset issue that I want to keep working on. It's definitely clear to me when whether I'm in this room or at Craft and Commerce or answering DMs on Instagram that I do not see myself apparently the way that some other people see me. So some other people, I mean, in general, but in one of the main ways is that people like act like I've made it, like kind of that's my best way of describing it. Or like a lot of people think that I have the ideal business scenario where they're just like, you sell the same two things. They sell all the time. You just like keep doing better and better. Your audience is growing. Like, dude, what are you so upset about? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't see it that way. Like whatever you see, I don't see it. So I just think that's really funny. And I guess I shared it because I do think we all have this story that like you might think that if your business looked like mine or you had whatever, you would be like, oh, well, then I would finally feel so awesome about myself. And I'm like, no, I hate to break it to everybody, but I'm sitting over here still not feeling awesome. So it's just from my perspective, as I write about my book, it's just because this stuff is not, it's not it, right? The subscribers, the followers, the book deals, the whatever, the money you make in your business, it's not what fills you up. It's not what gives you the happiness. I also don't associate my like sense of self or like self-worth with all of that stuff. And some people in our industry do more than others, right? And so there's some people you'll meet that'll be like very like, oh, if I had that thing, like I would feel so accomplished or whatever. And I'm like, well, maybe part of it is that I don't think it's that impressive to have like Instagram following. So maybe some of it is a little bit of that. I'm also from Philly and it's like inherently built into my DNA that we're very self-deprecating. And we also always have to be the underdog no matter what. Like even when you've won the Super Bowl, the very following year, you have like an underdog chant. So there's a reason that the Eagles are like that. It's a very Philly thing. And I'm definitely like that. Last but not least, one of the biggest takeaways I had was just it gave me a lot to think about when it comes to wanting to write another book, my next book. I know in my heart that I want to keep writing. It's really interesting because I always just think of it as like, well, if I want to keep writing, I have to write another book. It was interesting to be challenged by a couple of the writers there and agents and editors that are like, you don't need a book or permission by some editor or publisher to write something. You can have a Substack. You can write it yourself. You can write it just for yourself. God forbid. That's a crazy concept to me, right? So there's all this, there was some pushback there that I guess just kind of blew my mind of like, oh, that's never how I think about things. So that we're kind of looking for permission to be given the opportunity to do something from someone on the outside when you can just do it yourself. I would give you the same tip if you feel like you want more podcast guest interviews or you want to speak on stage. Often you have to start your own podcast and start, first of all, you becoming known as a podcaster, getting better at talking and hosting something like that, and then inviting guests onto your show, for example. It opens up a lot of doors and you have to be comfortable climbing, starting to be a guest on a very small or a new podcast. And then you get one that's a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and it keeps going. Some of the people I also spoke to at Mashup were asking me, like one of the editors I shared my next book idea with, he was like, would you see yourself talking about that topic for the next 8 to 9 years? And I was like, no, I do not want to talk about that topic for 8 to 9 years. So I think sometimes it's easy to lose sight of how, you're just trying to think of the next thing. Like, what's this thing I can just like pump out? Like, here's an idea. And I thought that was really helpful pushback. It also made it really clear to me in fumbling my way, very nervously talking to these like really fancy editors and agents, that I don't even know how to directly describe, first of all, what I want to write about next or what my writing style is. I believe I said everything from memoir to personal narrative to prescriptive fiction with personal narrative. And they were just like, which is it? And it was kind of funny that as I was having this conversation with them, I was just like, yeah, I don't even know what I want to do and like how to describe it. Yet I'm sitting here freaking out about whether I'm going to get another opportunity to write a book, but I don't even have a clear idea or know how to describe it. Like, chill out, just take your time. I just have this tendency to try to force it so much. So I thought that was really helpful. A lot of people asked me too about writing a book who own a business, obviously. And I thought one of the agents had a really good question back to me of like, how do you expect that kind of book to serve your business or your personal brand? Like, is it tied back? I mean, I guess it doesn't kind of have to be, but a lot of times as an author, it doesn't really make sense for you to write a book that doesn't tie to anything, right? If you're just like writing a random memoir, but you own a business, it's like, well, how do you expect this to fit in a bigger way? So it was all just very interesting as it comes to the book. But whether you want to write a book or do something else, I would just encourage you to think about where you might be waiting for somebody else to give you permission, or where you're creating a lot of stories around something that you can go out and do on your own and you don't really need anybody else's help. It also is a helpful reminder to get real with yourself sometimes that, sometimes we're not ready for what we wish for. Right. And so I'm sitting here being like, I want another deal. I want another deal. It's like, I'm not ready for another deal because I actually don't have a fully formed idea. I don't know what I would be really excited about in terms of talking about this for 8 to 9 years. And I don't know where it would lead. I don't have the answers to these very important questions. There's a careful balance between waiting for too long for things, right? And you don't need to necessarily have every single thing in place. Like, it might lead somewhere you don't expect. But I also think it's helpful on the front end where sometimes we're making up a story of like, well, if I just got another book deal, then like everything would be good again. And I don't think I feel ready to do it at the same time. So it's very helpful. All right, so I would love to know whether or not you liked this type of episode for a very important reason, because in June, I'm going to Craft and Commerce. And when I go to Craft and Commerce, I always learn so much. It is the best conference, and my episodes on my recaps of Craft and Commerce in the past have been really, really popular. But I want to know if you like this style of hearing kind of the recaps of what I'm hearing in the hallways, behind the scenes from people who are speaking at and attending these events. I'd also love to hear from you in my DMs or my inbox. What was the number one most helpful thing that you heard today in this episode? Is it one of the tips that you heard from one of the experts who spoke, one of my reflections? I would love to hear it and maybe how you're even going to implement it. And before you go, I want to remind you, if you get a copy of my book, When I Start My Business, I'll Be Happy, anywhere books are sold before April 29th, you'll get a free ticket to my live book club call on April 30th. That's 90 minutes of live down to business coaching with me for just the cost of a book. So if you've wanted to support my work in any way, please consider purchasing this book anywhere books are sold. It's available on Bookshop, Barnes & Noble, Target, Amazon, anywhere you can get books, and of course your local independent bookstore, my personal favorite. And all you have to do in order to get a ticket to book club is first, buy my book anywhere that you want, and second, go to samvanderwielen.com/book, fill out the form in section 2, and you'll get an invite automatically to book club. See you there. And with that, I'll chat with you next week. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening to the On Your Terms podcast. Make sure to follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can also check out all of our podcast episodes, show notes, links, and more at samvanderwielen.com/podcast. You can learn more about legally protecting your business and take my free legal workshop, 5 Steps to Legally Protect and Grow Your Online Business at samvanderwielen.com. And to stay connected and follow along, follow me on Instagram at samvanderwielen and send me a DM to say hi.